Donald Trump's big win moves him closer to the Republican nomination. Joining us to talk about all of this is Trump supporter James Lacy, the author of Taxophornia, and Rob Stutzman, a Republican strategist and Trump opponent who joins us in Sacramento, California. Good to have you both with us. Rob, to start with you, as we look at the situation and Donald Trump's overwhelming win in New York, you got to ask the question, it looks pretty hard for Ted Cruz to come back and that Stop Trump coalition to gain victory.
Well, I think we need to remember we're only 2 weeks removed from that coalition having a phenomenal night of success in the state of Wisconsin. There are states ahead next week, and then Indiana in 2 weeks. And finally, the big show comes out here to California, where we are this evening. And there are almost twice as many delegates still at stake in California. So there's a long way to go. And from the polling that we see in California, we're very confident that there's a path here to beat Trump for most of the delegates that are going to be available here.
Oh, Wisconsin, that was a lifetime ago. It was such a long time ago, and, the map does look positive for Donald Trump, at least in the next couple of states. But, James, Senate Leader Mitch McConnell said this today. When a nominee gets to 1237, he will actually be the candidate. If he does not, there will be a second ballot, and about 60% of the delegates who are bound on the first ballot will be free to do what they want to on a second ballot, and I'm increasingly optimistic that there may actually be a second ballot. So when you've got the leader of the Senate, basically coming out saying, I really hope there's a second ballot to deny Donald Trump the nomination, he then walked it back and said he was explaining the process. But this is a problem. How does Donald Trump win over the party establishment at this point?
Yeah, he just has to keep winning primary after primary because the establishment just doesn't want to believe it. Rob just said that he thinks that the polling in California looks good for the anti-Trump forces. But, Rob, that's just not true. The CBS poll that just came out shows that Donald Trump has 50% of the vote in California. Your premise is that he has 35%. You're looking at an old poll that came out around the time of Wisconsin primary. The reality is that Trump is 18 points ahead in this state and that he wins in every demographic category within the Republican Party. Old, young, women, men, Asians, Hispanics in the Republican Party. Yeah, this is what's going to happen. As a result of this New York election, the big momentum is going to come, and it's only going to get better in the later primaries for Trump.
Jim, why would there be momentum? He won his home state tonight, as would be expected. So tonight he performed the way he should perform in his home state. Now we go back to other states where the coalition that assembled in Wisconsin can reassemble itself, and that would primarily look next in Indiana. But California, the CBS poll's an outlier to the average that has existed for two very reliable polls in this state. Plus, and I suspect you are too, I'm seeing polling in seats across the state, and I see 20% to 25% of Republican voters who are absolutely mortified about Donald Trump and are not going to vote for him. There's real opportunity for Ted Cruz to grow here in many congressional districts. Remember, it's congressional districts here, just like in New York, and John Kasich may end up being viable in some Bay Area districts.
It's not just like New York. In New York, you have a situation where two candidates can get delegates out of a congressional district. In California, it's winner take all. The outlier is the poll that you're relying on, which is the field poll. My landslide Ensign poll before
I'm relying on the Real Clear Politic average, which includes the LA Times poll as well.
It's not the latest poll. Not the latest poll.
And let me bring this point to your attention, Rob. That I hear what you're saying, that the Stop Trump coalition still feels good about its chances. But how do you deal with the fact that most Republican voters seem to agree with Donald Trump? A recent CNN ORC poll found that 60% believe that if no candidate gets a majority, then the one with the most support and delegates should be the nominee, which is most likely going to be Donald Trump. How do you go against the will of the party?
Well, that's about process, because that's what would appear to seem fair to most people. That's actually a reasonable conclusion to probably come to. However, those are not the rules, and a majority of Republican voters have not supported Donald Trump, and there's the polling showing that they don't continue to support Donald Trump in a majority. The average in California, for instance, is about 38–39%. That's a plurality, and that's what he has successfully been able to use throughout this process. But as the field has narrowed and we get out of his home state of New York, he still has a lot of challenge to continue to win delegates with that mere plurality. So those are the rules. Trump needs to win by those rules if he's going to be the nominee. Look, I'll be the first one to agree. If he goes to Cleveland with the magic number of 1237 to be the nominee, then he should be. He will have earned it. But until then, the rules are in play, and he needs to play this game effectively as well as everybody else, including winning at the polls, but also winning in conventions and making sure he's courting delegates, because that's the way the process works.
Well, Rob, you're ignoring that 100,000 Democrats switched their party affiliation to Republican in Pennsylvania. 20,000 Democrats switched their party affiliation in Massachusetts. In California, voter registration is up 20% right now, and you can't tell me
we're hearing from people that are re-registering Republican.
Let me finish. Okay. You know what? If they want to come into the California Republican Party, you and others have presided over the most precipitous decline in Republican Party registration in history. Over the last 2 decades, Republican Party registration has gone from 40% to 27% in this state, and you've been a part of that. I'm going to tell you something right now. Donald Trump is going to bring new registrants to this Republican Party, and he's going to reverse, for the first time in 2 decades, he's going to reverse this trend downward. And I think you're going to see that by June 7th, we're going to have a candidate that has enough delegates to win that nomination.
Right.
Can we have you guys back to continue this discussion?
Fantasy.
Because we would like to keep this going. Okay, but we'd like to have you guys back because we're running out of time.
Yeah,
but
please come back.
It's a
You
good
got it.
discussion to have, and we promise. Thanks, Rob. We appreciate it.
All right, thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Well, seen in special elections.